Thank you. Crystal? Todd Spaeth?
Here.
And Steve?
Here.
Okay, first period for public comment. Anybody that has press,
Right. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Annette Olson, and I am a dispatcher at the Viroqua Police Department, and it will soon be 15 years since I've been there. I did see on the agenda tonight, there is something in regards to protocol for paging the Viroqua fire. So I thought it might be a good idea for me to be here and just hear what it is in regards to. And if anyone has any questions, I will try to answer. So that is my purpose for being here, so.
okay, thanks, Annette. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go on to operator license approvals.
Okay, we have three of them this evening. We have one for Melissa Gabrielson. She had one previously under her previous name of Melissa Iverson. She is working at Pizza Hut. So that is a renewal. And then we have two new ones for Quick Trip South. The first one is Nola Karwaski. It's a new one, took the class December 23rd. And Haley Delahunt is a new one, and she took it on January 6th. I sent them in for the background check and they all came back okay. So they're just looking for your approval to forward to City Council.
Right, this is Crystal, and I would move approval of the operator licenses for the people that were previously stated.
Steve, I'll second.
Moved by Crystal, seconded by Steve. Any comments? Not? All those approved signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Discussion with possible action on application to serve beer and wine at Viroqua Community Theater Variety Show by Vernon Vineyards on February 22nd, 2025.
Okay, this is something that's kind of new. I put it out in the packet for you guys. Normally we would have something like a picnic license that would be coming forward to you. However, due to the Wisconsin Act 2023, there was some changes in regards to allowing producers to have like an off-site retail sales. So this is the first one that we have seen where Vernon Vineyards is asking to be a retailer to be able to sell at an event, which is scheduled for the February 21st and 22nd at the Viroqua Community Theater on East Jefferson. The hours of operation would be 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And they have stated in here that access to the theater requires a ticket for the event and the maximum capacity is 140. Vernon Vineyards will occupy a designated space within the theater common area to serve wine and beer during the performances, and all inventory will be kept in their designated area. Under these, they are required to provide or have an operator, and they have stated in their letter that they would be the ones that would be providing the operators. So this is a new event. I do believe we have some people here that are representing the event. And so I don't know if you wanted any more information than that on it. But like I said, this is the first time. I will say on background on these, I did contact the Department of Revenue since this is the first time. And normally on these picnic licenses, we get to collect like a $10 fee. So we have not collected any fees or any of these because we don't have that set up in our ordinances. So I'm working with our attorneys to possibly get that changed so we could actually, when we do have these come through, that we can collect something for being able to process these. The next step from this is if they are approved here and at council, then they have to go to the Department of Revenue for the final approval prior to that. So there's another step beyond us, but we are the first step. So if there are any questions, they are here to explain more about it if you guys need before making a decision.
Anyone from the committee have questions or comments?
Just wondering, is this a per event application or is this good for a certain period of
This
time?
would be a
or-
per event
per event, yeah.
application.
Okay.
Sir? Would you
You
go
need
up
to
to
come up
the
to the mic.
and push the little button so the green light comes on?
So when we first found out that the whole law was changing, we actually went to a conference with somebody from the Department of Revenue. At that point in time, there's only 3 people on the whole committee, and they're gonna end up with like 18 people on it. But at that point in time, they suggested, and you don't have to do that now, but in the future, they suggested that municipalities pick somebody like maybe the treasurer, the clerk of courts that can actually approve these. Otherwise, we have to come to every meeting. It has to be approved at every meeting. So that's something to consider in the future. That's what the director of the Department of Revenue said would be most efficient in the future. I know this is the first time, and thank you so much for listening to us, but in the future, that's something to look forward to. I know it's not on the agenda, but it would be something to kind of consider in the future. I do understand what you're saying about picnic licenses and why do you want to do the paperwork or spend the time without getting some compensation? And I agree with that. You should. So that's all I had to say about that part of it. So in the future, if the city council would actually designate somebody that can make those things, I do think it's important that I am here today and my wife's here. I think it's important because I want you to know who we are and that we are part of the community and we want to support the community. And that's why we're actually doing this. As far as making money, it's not about making money for us. It's about helping the community theater out more than anything else. So that's all I have for you guys.
Sir, would you state your name and address?
John Pedretti, S3426 Peterson Lane, Viroqua.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else with comments or questions?
I do want to address the fact that I know that they want to designate a certain person to be able to do these. However, some of these events, if this were to be done more, I believe should come back to you guys because you need to know what's happening in the city. And I don't want to be the sole person, if I was the designee, to say yes or no. So I think it is a good practice to have it still come through the way that we are doing it currently.
Anybody else? Anybody have a motion?
This is Crystal, and I would move that we approve the application to serve beer and wine at the Viroqua Community Theater Variety Show by Vernon Vineyards on February 21st and 22nd of 2025.
Todd, I second Crystal's motion.
Moved by Crystal, seconded by Todd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. You bet. Police Department presentation on year 2024.
So that will be me. I also brought our investigator and assistant chief with just to help with some of the numbers and questions. So you don't always have to hear from me for the next 52 slides, but I will tell you they go fast. So a lot of it's informational of what we are doing. Yep. Thank you for coming. What we have done in 2024. And I guess that now I get to kind of boss Sarah around so you can kind of go through it. So the first one is just personnel. So it will just go through myself and then Robert Rosh, who's sitting to my left. He is newly appointed assistant chief, as you guys remember from last month. Next ones will be Jeff, who's here present with us, and then Sergeant Matt White. And if there's any questions, I can talk about their 10 years and everything too, but we have an amazing team here. So Brandon Lemire and Officer Vian, you'll see later in the slides, but there are 2 K9 handlers. And then Officer Ian Aspenson. And our 3 new ones is Lucas Allen, Bradley Rosh, and Justin Wolf. We have 2 dispatchers, as you heard a little bit ago, Annette with 15 years and Karenna with over 8. We got her from Vernon County this June. Resignations, we had 5 individuals left the agency for a variety of different reasons, but a lot of years of service here. Most of you guys would remember him, other than the one in the middle. He was our snowman. He was the one that the snow fell on. So a lot of people remember that video. But Carter went to a different agency, Jake, and then actually the 3 officers. And then we lost Jake this year, and Phyllis retired. And now with some numbers and again, there's a lot of numbers here. I'll try to go slow. I'll just hit on the various points. So a lot of them are very consistent with each year, but there are some bigger ones. So like the ones on this slide would be mental health calls. As you see, 9 of them from 2023 were chaptered and actually went to a hospital. They actually went and got medical treatment. And then you're like, holy cow, we had 51. That is also just hospitals, but it's also safety plans, or ultimately maybe family members where they were borderline, they could have went to the hospital, but we were able to find a sufficient family member or loved one, or even a crisis worker that was, being able to stay with them. So our mental calls have greatly increased this year. So, but again, before I move on, any questions, or we can keep going, just please be informal and just beller them out. Next slide.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are those mental health calls, do they involve the same individual, or are they multiple individuals? Like,
Yep.
But,
There
you know-
are a few that are just the same one where they're kind of going through an anxiety or, kind of mental crisis for maybe a week, and we got maybe 4 or 5 calls that week.
okay.
But most time they are different people.
Well, it'd be nice to see, I guess, if it was different individuals. I mean, I get it. Each call's a call, but it'd be nice to know.
I don't know, you two can help me out, but out of those, I'd say 40 of them were different people.
Say at least
40 of them were different, 45. So there's just a few that, added with, a commitment order or a family member. So it's still pretty high where it's still single, but I think the next one is my thefts and burglaries. So, yep. So I'll talk about this slide and then I'll let Investigator Welborn take over. 911 hangups kind of went up just a little bit. There was a big down from just 2 years ago. So that one was just kind of COVID, kind of everybody didn't really leave the house a lot. But for the most part, the alarms drastically went up from last year. And those are businesses, residential alarms. Thefts actually went down a little bit. Burglaries are, last year, again, we had a little anomaly where it was low. But if I looked at 2021, 20, it was consistent with 12 and 11. Sexual assaults he'll talk about, and open doors business checks. So business checks went way up just because realistically the first time I've been full staff and fully trained, so the guys and gals were out there logging everything, so checking businesses. That is not residence checks, those are just businesses. So actually, if you look at those numbers, what I kind of see though is the open doors. So your businesses are securing their doors at night, the schools are securing it. So checking a business, multiple businesses 1,000 times, and you only find 25 open doors, that's actually pretty good. So they're locking up. So Jeff, you want to take over?
My name is Jeff Walburn. I am currently assigned to investigations, and just so you guys kind of know what I do, I primarily do all the big investigations that come in, and I'll explain to you what that is, but I also will fill in and work patrol shifts when I need to. I just picked up a 3rd shift here a couple weeks from now, so probably regret that, but so what happens is a call comes in that, and you can kind of dispatch will gauge whether or not it's a call that's going to need a little more follow-up, a little more work, subpoenas, search warrants, that kind of thing. And that comes to me because I'll have the time to do it. And it takes a little bit off of patrol. So I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you're the patrol car and you're going from call to call to call, or you're trying to do an investigation and you get sent to pick up a dog or a shoplifting complaint when you're right in the middle of trying to interview somebody. So that's the value of having an investigator, is I can focus on one thing at a time and move through it. So the chief did a great job with the numbers. This is pretty much what all I had to hand out. A few things. There was a couple calls that I wanted to highlight. We had a 3 burglaries were all together kind of. And it was amazing how we worked together, from the 3rd shift car finding the damage on the church, to the information getting to me, to me interviewing the suspect with another officer and identifying him from video, So it was amazing how we all worked together and we got 3 convictions for the burglaries on this guy and he actually went back to prison for those. And so I run the gamut from that kind of stuff all the way down to, I had a case where we had a $30,000 embezzlement case and that case is still pending, but so that's the kind of stuff that I do every day. We've done several search warrants and those all take quite a bit of time to gather it and get it over and get it all approved. But I would say since doing this investigator stuff, it is a very needed position in this department. And thank you for allowing us to do that. So.
You have them in front of you, but it was 106 to what you had. So he had 106 investigations, and he has some handouts here for you. But out of those, most of them we resolved, but he did an amazing job with that. So if you are having a check fraud to, like you said, some sexual assaults, closing those out. But a lot of these big cases are getting resolved, which is what we want to see, you know, as a city, as a victim. So they're not really going, I guess, unsolved or uncooperative witnesses or victims or so. Out of the 106 cases we kind of put on his plate, he did a good job. So any questions for him? Okay, Sarah? I split up the animal calls. This is the first time I actually did this with our new CAD system that we were able to do it. So we had 161 animal calls and complaints, but then I actually split up the animal bites. So there is actually 20 people that actually got bit by a dog or a cat. Escorts went extremely way down, which is actually, for what it's worth, is good. We're not escorting for funeral homes or had the need for it. And that also could be as wide loads or something that might need help in going through town or making a corner at, 56. We like to help them so they don't take out streetlights and Lori gets mad at us. So, but yeah, fraud, this is pretty good. Drug and alcohol is, these are ones that we get dispatched to. I'll have another couple of slides of what our citations and charges were for that. But those are calls for service that we get dispatched to, where actually we had one today is like someone in our apartment is smoking marijuana. It's coming into our apartments. Can you kind of help us out? Or we found drugs in the lobby of, one of the shared apartments that will be just checked under a drug or alcohol. Okay. Traffic related, same kind of thing. Traffic related is your traffic complaints, your traffic stops, anything realistically doing with a car in motion. Accidents, we're going to talk about accidents just in a couple more slides, but 197 of them. And I will tell you again, that has went way down just prior to me. And actually you could probably go from my predecessor, even John's. We were closer to almost every day of the week, like almost 300 in a year. So even just being at 197 is pretty remarkable. Parking complaints, 170 of them, which is 89 of them with winter snow event. So out of the 89, we only had, I think 12 the later half of this winter season, because we only had one snow so far. So most of those were back in early February and March. Property maintenance, 128, and then that does not include, or that does include the no mow May ones. So, and we'll have the numbers for the citations in a little bit, but Sarah, yep. Again, other than domestics are up. School walkthroughs, we kind of have officers going through the school as much as they can, which is warranted by or requested from the schools. And we see the positive of that almost every day. And even just with lemonade stands or, especially the officers that go there more often is where's Rick, where's Brandon, where's Bradley, they're asking the officers by name. Other calls we'll talk about here in a second. So David Triggerstead asked me to do this last year. So We had a total of this year, 393 calls for outside agency, but I wanted to kind of be clear, this isn't us going to, it is a little bit like Reedstown or Westby helping them out. So we do help them out a little bit, but most of this stuff, 393 calls, is assisting another agency that is in the city of Viroqua. So if Westby arrests a drunk, and they're combative at the hospital, they need some assistance, we go there. If it's a probation, or if Madison PD asked me to do a death notification for a citizen here, I'm assisting Madison. That goes under outside agency. So when you kind of look at that, David always like, you guys are leaving the city 393 times. No, we're actually, we probably left the city 20 times out of those, all that number. So, but yeah, Blood Humane Society helping out. If they catch a dog, we just open it up for them if Westby or the county needs help. So I just wanted to kind of clarify on that. This is kind of jumped at me because we always feel that our numbers went way up, but we added roughly 2,400 calls. And these are cases and incidences. These aren't ones that are just phone calls coming in, or if something warrants getting a name, there's a victim of a crime, there is a suspect, there is a traffic accident. We added 2,400 calls this year. So if you kind of divide that up by the, number of officers or even number of days, I mean, actually I didn't do that, but if we, 64, we'll just go 6,400 divided by 365. So that's 17 and a half calls a day for our officers. I thought this was unique. I just quickly added those up with our new phone system. 19,103 calls came in. People called the PD, our dispatch. That's for a variety of reasons, but those are your complaints. But that's also, do you have any questions, or you still have the your hours, or what do we do for parking at during the winter? So, but we answered 19,000. That's just when we are open. A few citations wise is the number of traffic stops was 532, with 162 of them were cited. OWIs were 14, speeding was 31. And again, this was the year we had the that was last year. We had the traffic grant and we couldn't hardly find a speeder on Main Street with the new change, which is amazing, to be honest with you. OWIs, again, you guys can kind of see these. These are just broke down. Your 40 all other are kind of squealing tires, hit and runs, inattentive driving, citations. Sign violations are mostly stop signs or traffic lights. Back where I said we were going to catch up with the drugs, these are the ones that were actually cited. Alcohol is cited, whether they had an open intox, but that is also underage drinking. House numbering, well, that's one of my last slides, but we went through some ordinance citations, and out of, I just did that number, I'll show it, but out of 100 violations, we almost had perfect voluntary compliance, except for 5 people, and then they did them. And then the only other ones were the all other was, we had some cigarette problems with some businesses, trespassing, and some truancies that were kind of falling on those all other. This one kind of speaks for itself. Almost there. This is what Investigator Walburn was kind of talking about. I've said this since I honestly got here. The value of the property that is stolen is we've always had the state notoriously has, it's hard to get people's property back at all times. So to have a high percentage of property received and given back to the victims, and the PD has done an amazing job. The team has done an amazing job. That number looks really bad right now, just because it's, 39,000 was taken. We only got $3,000 back. But as you see in that little bottom one, that's 30,000 that's still pending. So if we change that, we were able to get $33,000 back to the victims. Um, 197 accidents, like I kind of said, so I just got a few pictures, not much here. So this is the combine in front of Sleepy Hollow Ford. The next slide is about the twiddle, though. And again, if you want to talk to your constituents or anybody else, I cannot say I can say it very confidently. This is the second year in a row. I have asked these guys, just in case I missed anything, we looked it up. We have still not had one rear end accident on Main Street. And that's pretty much all we had, you know, people turning into Walgreens or Culver's or, this twiddle is working. We've had some accidents on Main Street, but most of those are driver error or, you know, up by the stoplights or someone can't turn or didn't see the stoplight, but no rear ends. There's probably some close calls, but it's very beneficial. So just a few,
So would you agree that a lot of them are like people pulling out or trying to pulling out in front of someone or trying to shoot the gap type of thing?
on Main Street?
Yeah.
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 But we actually had, I think you or Corinna had asked, it's like, can you break it down to where most of them are still on Main and Decker? So right at those lights where it's a light issue or it's a turning left or that 3-car rear end where somebody just didn't know they were stopped and hits all 3 cars, but. Okay. So our lovely stoplight, yeah. I tried to put the video on it because it's a good video, but. So. I think there's just one more. So this is, if you remember public safety, I did show the video of this one. But you see this, he at the stoplight is sitting on top of his truck right now. But you can also, what I look at too, is he's already, you know, 3-4 feet onto the curb. So just us moving that sidewalk back, whatever it was, 8 feet is just watching them maneuver now. It's great. And people are kind of watching the stop lines. So we are seeing that. Probably a couple more slides, the property maintenance. This is kind of what we were doing with the no mow May and just, the property maintenance where a few of those got, you know, citations or tried to get voluntary compliance. Those are some of those properties. Just drugs. I don't do, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. They're here.
Rick, do you mind if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On the dog bites, is it all different, like a question like he asked, is it all different dogs or are there
Those are all different
habitual-
dogs.
Yeah.
I take that back. I think we did have one.
It can be any.
It can be any animal, but I think we only had one that was bit somebody twice. One dog bit somebody
Yeah.
that was walking by their house. The leash was too big.
Oh.
So there's one dog, but other than that, so there would be 19 different dogs.
And then how do you deal with a issue like that where a dog is just,
Mostly it's
if you had,
mostly it's case by case, knowing what was the intent of the dog. If it was like, you know, if it was a kid, did they step on the tail? Was it trying to
Oh,
defend
yeah.
itself? Then we kind of just leave it up to the vet and the homeowner.
okay,
If it was like the one I kind of just mentioned and it was a leash thing, they were cited.
Yep.
And then actually we have a city ordinance. So if it happens one more time, it's considered habitual.
Yep.
So then the dog either has to be put down or cannot actually leave the inside of the house without
oh,
owner's
Yep.
thing.
okay, thanks.
DMV, we'll see this, but yeah, we were not as busy as the years in the prior, and that is on 3 months of not having full staff when Phyllis retired in March 1st, and then Corinna got hired in June, and then DMV, actually, there's another, we can talk about another slide. I think I put it, Annette put it in there. There we go. So DMV was out for a month and a half. I think I mentioned that at one of our public safety. That was just a vendor issue, had nothing to do. That was across the whole state for like the kiosks at Walgreens. That was just the whole thing. But with that is the profit, which will be big, is ultimately we now will get, because we get very little from our transactions. It keeps going down and down, but this year it went up from $6. You can help. I don't know that one. Anyway, they went, we're at 23 and that was a significant upgrade, and then $6.10 for the renewals. So that'll be, you know, out of 435 renewals, we're talking 1,400 extra bucks there, and then probably close to $10,000 extra in profit for, if you could go, can you go back to the last slide? 23 times 235, another $5,400 just in the increases of the title transfers.
Do the ships go through you guys or do they go through?
The dealerships are on their own. They go through the DMV, the state. I think there's only like 4 slides left. So UTVs is just, again, I think David asked me to put this in there last year. So we haven't had any citations with any of the UTVs that we initiated, feels like 2 years ago, a year ago, 23. Feels it's only been a year, but maybe it has been 2 years. So again, we have 0 citations. We have had numerous stops with them, and we use it for educational, for the violators where they might be out of town going on Main Street. At the time, it was a lot of curfew stuff, but that, you know, without that being gone now. So, so they're being stopped, but we're not seeing the violations, which is great. Again, the city side, we have the city use side of the undeveloped side of our PD. So it is being used by outside clubs like crazy. Mostly Stonehouse Counseling, which are there tonight. Hunter Safety is there, feels like every other month or every month. Boy Scouts is there quite a bit, probably more than once a quarter. But yeah, we're now starting to get a lot of other programs and nonprofits that know that we have it, that have been asking about it. So I see that being busier this summer. House numbering, this was a thing that I can't remember last time it was done, but yeah, a lot of residents and businesses did not have adequate house numberings or numbers, and that is huge, as you guys know, in this committee for fire, EMS, law enforcement, anything. So that was a big undertaking. And just a few things that we just did then is we still give out bike helmet or free ice cream for bike helmets. We are partnering with Good Shepherd this year for a bike rodeo. And just a few things like we did with Pact in those rooms you saw. National Night Out. If you haven't been there, that's an amazing, amazing night, especially for the kids. Everything's free and they really get to see their eyes on all the different vendors and fire departments, and so. Some ice cream and forest. Nope. I partnered with Faith, Hope, and Love. Sorry, I guess I said 4 slides, but I forgot about these 2 slides. Faith, Hope, and Love is an organization that I've found at the Chiefs Conference, and we partnered with them. That is when we give duffel bags to kids when they're taken out of their home, whether it's for a fire, it's for a bad domestic, it's anything. So then instead of maybe they can't take anything away or they didn't have time to pack, we can give them stuff that is theirs instead of, you know, maybe some hand-me-downs or stuff that were maybe in the squad car. So if you go to the next slide, these duffel bags are full of a coloring book, but it's flashlights, books, teddy bears, their own blanket, but then the hygiene stuff. So then they can, whatever their age is. And then actually they just added this, talking to her, they just added earmuffs, sound, music in their heads just for any autistics, and then flashcards. So then they could kind of communicate with EMS, fire, or, you know, if they had a house, they can try to communicate with somebody that's talking to them. So that is a great program. Again, you never want to give out those bags, but it helps.
Say, Rick, is it something that could go farther than just the city of Iroquois?
It's through this whole state, and she's in Illinois right now.
All right. So I'm thinking like township type stuff too, where you guys wouldn't necessarily be involved, but
I gave all the county, every law enforcement in the county has them.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to our local one and I gave them, I asked for, I don't know, 20, 30 bags, and I made sure every agency has a bag. And actually, I think I gave like 4 bags to everyone.
Do they
And then-
carry them in the car then, or is it something that they
Yep,
have
they
to?
carry in the car. Every county deputy has one, And then I think I gave sheriff like 10 more, just, you know, because they're the bigger, you know, agency, but
All right. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
our
Thanks.
county is covered. Our golf outing is just about our dogs, so here's our last few slides. So we raised 13 and you'll come up, you're fine. No, you can keep going. It's just a few things that we're doing for the youth shoot and it's just about my dogs. Drug take back, that's actually a huge number. 376 pounds. That is just for everybody that's listening online as well. That is not like your pill containers. That is just the pill. We dump all the pill containers and recycle them, and actually Lions Clubs and a few other ones will like some of those for other storage units, but that is just the pills itself. And yeah, that, I mean, if you sit there for more than an hour at our PD, somebody's coming in and dropping off medication. So we are-
When they bring them in, it's, yeah, with the container or without?
preferably if you can put them all in a Ziploc bag, put the Ziploc and just dump them in there. That's even easier for us. So then I just open up a Ziploc bag and dump them in. But yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, those are 376 pounds of narcotics and different medication that's not being flushed down the toilet and getting in your drinking water and getting in or out of hands for kids or anything else. The only other thing is I try to remember, this is also includes pet medication. So if you guys have pet medication, we will take that too. A little fun one. That was our burglary we had this spring. So we had to go get. Yep.
Where was the business, or was it in a house?
That was the
or
church
business?
at Latter-day Saints, right there
Oh.
off of Main Street by the bus garage.
Yep. Okay.
Our own Annette got person of the year, and that's through the whole county, law enforcement person. So that she didn't want me to put that in the slide at all, but I made her, so, or we did. So congratulations. That's a big deal. So thank you. And then just our two dogs. You guys have seen this before, so we got two of them. This is the one that the city purchased. This is Hasek. Brandon is the current handler for Hasek. So they both started in June of 24. And then Roberts is the one we kind of raised from the golf outing and donations and fundraiser. So that is 100% paid for by the community. And again, Loki just started they both kind of started at the same time, so. And we just used Loki for, Jeff, was that a sexual assault? No. Anyways, a victim came in and we tried to help a sexual assault, and Loki is very good with kids, so it's kind of a dual purpose dog right now. And then, yeah, our last slide is just both of them when they got sworn in that we're here, and they kind of went after Lori a little bit. Yep, she swore at. So, any questions? Sorry, I was not trying to go too fast, but I didn't want to, hard to get one whole year in and a little bit, so.
I'm just very happy to hear that the traffic numbers are better because it says that what we're trying to do is working.
It is working.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for breaking all the numbers down, and makes it easy for us to see what's going on.
And again, if you need it more, whatever, it's just PowerPoint. I didn't print them off because I'm trying to save paper, but I can easily email it to any of you guys if you wanted to see those numbers or get closer. That's very easy for us to do, so.
Thanks, Chief, and congratulations, Annette. That's awesome. Appreciate that.
Rick, on the stoplights, are they not coordinated between the two corners now?
I guess the ones from Quitchup North,
No, from Decker and Main to,
oh, they're, so we have them, they're planned, they're synced from even like,
okay,
so east and west, so we have it actually even like for school traffic, we added 20 minutes. So it was opened up a lot more on the west side so people can get out, and then the east side. But I think they're talking.
Yeah, I know there was, I need to deal with the Opticon not working on all legs. That was it to do. But yeah, we can like make them adjust a little bit. In the summertime, there's no sense in having like the school traffic be waited for because there's no school traffic. So yeah. And then when they will put the one on South Street, when they end up putting that in, it will have a sensing about what's happening on the side street. So it will only turn when it needs to versus, yeah. So it should make a little bit of a difference. And the gap now sure helps a lot more. Yeah.
That was a dumb question I asked because that second set of stoplights isn't there to coordinate with. But it will be, right? Okay. Anybody else with comments? Well, thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate it. Okay, we will move on then. Information regarding protocols on dispatching the fire department.
So yeah, I had this put on so that I could talk to the Public Safety Committee on how the fire department gets paged for emergency responses. For quite a few years, I don't know exactly, so help fill me in here, but for quite a few years, 911 calls were paged by Vernon County Sheriff's Department due to them receiving all the 911 calls coming in from the county. That went on for quite a few years. There were points where some of the radio traffic would be taken over by the city after the county had paged us and got us going. And there was some changes that here and there as far as how that worked. Worked quite well for quite a few years. And then, and again, I'm bringing this to the Public Safety Committee to kind of inform and be transparent and make sure that you know how we operate and how we function. So about 3 months ago, that all started to change, and things kind of started feeling like it was different, and in the process and how it was coming through, and who was answering our radio traffic, and so on and so forth. So asked the question on what's going on, and we set up a meeting with Vernon County Sheriff's Department because again they were doing most of the paging, and all of a sudden they weren't. And with Rick from the PD, and then also Bruce from the Sheriff's Department Dispatch. I think I meant the sheriff was there, myself, and then the mayor had a meeting so we could figure out what the change was and what was happening. At that time, I was made aware that changes had been made without my knowledge or approval for process on how we would be paid for emergency calls and what to expect. So at that meeting, I learned what those changes had been decided on and what they had thought was going to work best for us. And long story short, between all 5 of us, it was determined that we would give it some time. Let's try it for 3 months. But I had my what's the word? My doubts or my concerns or whatever of making the change, and I'll get into it a little bit more here as I go. But I thought, okay, that's fine. Let's try it for 3 months, and if things are at least the same, if not better, then great. We waited for 3 months. I feel that it's not better. It's not terrible, but it's not the same. And to kind of give you an idea, so I already said that 911 calls come into the Vernon County Sheriff's Department. So their dispatchers take the information, they're talking to the person that's having the emergency, they're gathering that information, so on and so forth. For them to page us, we're hearing it directly from them, 100% from the source. And then we can ask questions, which most of the time they'll have answers for because they have taken the call. Since the change that happened 3 months ago, a lot of times what'll happen is, well, what does happen is that the Sheriff's Department will sometimes page us the first time, but a lot of times they'll transfer the call. No, sorry, won't transfer the call. They will enter the information into the CAD system, which then the police department sees, and then takes the call from there and pages us and so on and so forth. So the issue with that is we can't change who's taking the 911 call. It's set in stone. Can't make that change. Problem is you've got a middle person now at this point. And so one, there's time. There's definitely time lost in that. Not a lot of time, but there's time lost. There's emotion, there's personal conversation, there's sometimes they still have them on the phone, you know, so on and so forth. So my intent, or what I've already started, and I spoke with all the key people because I wanted to make sure that it was transparent and everybody that was involved or would be involved would know. But I went and spoke with the sheriff. I've talked to the mayor. I talked to John as public safety chair. I've talked to a lot of our guys, firefighters, and obviously myself. And we made the determination that it was smoother. It made more sense. And every other department in the county, fire department wise, EMS, as one-stop shop for 911 calls and dispatching. And the consistency is important to me in our department. The processes, things like that are important. And so what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to have all 911 calls. We'll go back to the sheriff's department like it was, and they will handle it from start to finish. Any calls that come into the city dispatch, because they do get emergency calls, believe it or not, still on the regular phone line, which is crazy, but people still will call that regular number. I want that to be handled by city dispatch because it's exactly the way I'm wanting it to do work with the 911 calls. So I want them to handle that. The other key to it is when there's township calls, how it's been going on for the last 3 months. When there's township calls, the sheriff's department handles those. When it's city calls, then the city handles those calls. It's cumbersome. I'm not going to get into the weeds with it, but again, I wanted to be transparent and let public safety know that this is how our dispatching was working. Want to go back to that, and then what it had transpired or what we had tried for 3 months the other way. So any questions? Probably
Yeah.
said or explained more than what I had planned, but that's okay too. Go ahead.
I got a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So if it was changed without us hearing about it, why does it matter? Like,
Because I
do
believe
we
in
have a say in how it gets
No.
done?
I believe in transparency
Okay.
and understanding and knowing what's going on.
Okay.
I'm not looking for approval. I just
Right.
figured that it's good for you to know. And
Okay.
I've got another piece that I want to talk about too that might make sense in a second on that
Well, it's
question.
like, who made that decision and why?
To switch it back,
No, what,
Or- why it got changed in the first place.
yes,
Wasn't me.
sure. I'm just saying, there was a reason, yes?
Apparently, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So,
But
any other questions? Go ahead.
it's back to the way you want it and it's working good
It's back to what we were used to. It's back to how it was working
and everybody's okay with it.
on the fire department side and the sheriff's department side.
Okay.
I can't, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Rick, will you come back in a couple, 2-3 months and tell us how it's going?
Rick, me? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
I'm sorry.
absolutely. So one thing, and kind of going off what you said, Steve, you hear me talk about stuff every once in a while and you're like, why are you even telling us this or whatever? I believe you hear stuff on the street, you kind of wonder how things work. You know, this might have been a discussion 2 years ago, 3 years ago that, so you guys know how we get dispatched and just informational type stuff, right? And so this is kind of a contentious little change, let's just say. And so I feel it's important that my home committee knows what's going on.
Do you know who changed it?
Yes.
Do you not want to say who changed it?
I would assume that the PD/Rick did.
Okay. Was there a reason why that was changed?
Yes. You want to continue or can I say?
He asked you the question. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I was brought up from the mayor and fire chief that there was a personnel issue with one of the dispatchers. So then they went to the county at that time, that dispatcher is no longer employed by us at this time. So then we actually, from the deputies, the sheriff, actually, we got one of their better dispatchers and it's been, resolved. So it came back to us because that personnel issue was no longer employed.
Okay, enough.
Another one of the reasons that there was a change is the Vernon County Sheriff's Department and the Viroqua Police Department just starting April 15th was our first date that we switched, and we are now using the same exact systems that we were. So whenever they've got someone answering and talking on the phone, they're typing in that information. We see it instantly, what they're doing, where they're sending people. So that is when and where the change was made. It wasn't made immediately after we started to give us a chance to get used to the system. But then once that change was made, that is why we start kicking in and dispatching. So if the Vernon County Sheriff's Department is taking a 911 call, they're busy on the phone talking and typing that information in. We can see it and we can page for the first responders while they're transferring that call to Tri-State, and then we can step in if it's something in the city of Viroqua. So that's where that change was made, because we can see the information that they know and that they're typing. So that is kind of where that process started. And that was agreed upon with the dispatch agencies, the chief and the sheriff, and Bruce Olson, who's the sergeant at dispatch.
Is this the reason why the calls went up by like 2,200 calls?
This is still, these calls are still for the city of Viroqua that are on this report. So I believe with a different system, there's probably better record keeping. Everything gets entered in there if it's if calls for officers and things like that. So it's a different system that we're using as of April 15th.
But the dispatching itself didn't fluctuate those numbers.
But this is Viroqua calls, this that you're seeing the records and information on, not Vernon County. The calls are separated by city and the county.
Sure.
So these numbers are just city calls that you saw earlier.
So Chad, your biggest issue was a delay in which the information was passed on to you? Was there a delay in it, or is that what the biggest problem is?
Are you talking about like the daily calls, or are you talking about the change and how dispatch was going to work?
Well, did it change the amount of time that the call was relayed to the fire department or the EMS?
I believe so, yes. I don't have it by the second, but, and we could have some conversations on some calls that didn't go the greatest, and the confusion that happens, you know, things like that, but I'm not gonna, that could take some time or whatever. But what I can say is that, and Annette did a decent job, a good job of explaining how the new CAD system, and there were some thoughts on, you know, whatever, and that's all fine. But you did also hear her talk about who had discussed it and who made the change. And zero, the organization that it affects the most was not involved at all. And when I make decisions and when I do things, it's for our people and our response and our firefighters. We weren't to the table at that. It wasn't even really, other than me being very adamant or aggressive at that meeting I'd mentioned that we'd called for to try and figure out why and what the change was. I really didn't have a say in it. We didn't have a say in it. So that is not the reason why I'm changing it. That's why we said, let's give it 3 months and see how it goes. Again, I'd stated it's not terrible, but it is more clunky. And I guess the easiest way to explain it is like Todd, I've got something to tell you, right? I've got some information I want to give you and I want to talk to you, but I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to call Glenn. I'm going to talk to Glenn. I'm going to tell him everything. And then Glenn's going to get a hold of you to give you that information, right? That's not, and that's, maybe that's not a great example, but that's the best way I can explain it. Like that's cumbersome, right? That's not clean. That's an extra step. That's
Right.
you know.
But the way I understood Annette, they're seeing that same information that's being typed while the dispatcher, the county did, the 911 dispatcher is receiving information. So I could almost see where it would save time.
No, No. Not all the time. So I'm hoping that this doesn't get into a back and forth like Steve, you'd asked this question. Normally, this is a department like decision type operations or whatever. And so for someone else to be making those decisions, and don't take this wrong, Todd, like, and I'll answer your question, but I don't want it to get into a back and forth like who's right, who's wrong, whatever. Someone can tell me we're driving an engine wrong or we're sending too many trucks to a call, that kind of departmental stuff. In some situations, maybe the typing and things like that, but we have experienced, and we had a call, I'm not going to say which call or whatever, but I'd asked a question and the answer was, I'm waiting for the typing, for them to type it so I can see what they know. I could have just as well got on the radio and asked them, because that dispatcher doesn't have to finish typing before they can tell me what they know. So sometimes, yes, maybe. It depends on how busy, there's all kinds of things that play into that. And I've got a bunch of examples that didn't go well. And all I can say is 3 months ago, I didn't feel this way. I didn't feel clunky. There's always things, right? It's just, there's always things to work on. It's not about that, because we talked about at our officers meeting last night that there's some things that we need to work on with dispatch, both dispatches. Nothing bad, but things to work on. That's not what I'm talking about. I've got some other officers that have said the same thing. It feels clunky. You don't know who you're talking to sometimes you don't. It just, I could go on for a while. So I don't know if that answered your question, Todd, but that's the situation. Yep. Nope, I understand. So,
But as long as it's resolved now,
Well-
for the time being.
well, hopefully, yes. I mean, and I feel, I don't know why it wouldn't be like at the drop of a hat. I don't know why it wouldn't be back to the same situation
Is
or how it worked before.
Viroqua the only municipality that has the same system that the county uses? So we're the only ones that would have that feature?
So Viroqua is the only entity that has its own dispatch center.
Sure.
The county covers everybody else. Every other fire call, every other medical call goes through. Now, this goes way back. John probably knows better than I, and I'm not going to get into the weeds, but there's a reason why the city has its own dispatch center. And you saw the call numbers and things like that. Makes sense. Things have changed over the years. The city dispatch used to do more for the Viroqua Fire Department, and little by little that's changed, like less and less. It really started changing when they moved out of the building, which is a conversation that Rick and I had way back, that we had concerns, or I had concerns on relationships and stuff. And this isn't about relationships, but we talked about change, right? Moving out and things like that. And less exposure to each other, less communication or whatever. And again, that's not what this is about. But little by little, less phone calls, less, now Daisy's there, so she's handling the phone calls. The county's been, 911 system came in, a lot of changes happened, and county started doing more 911 calls, the dispatching because of that. So this is like a history of change or whatever. And all I can go back to is the fact that 3 months ago, it didn't seem as clunky, seemed smoother. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's change that makes it feel clunky beyond those other things that I talked about. So that's why I'm making the decision that I want to move back to the county, because we knew that was tried and true, and we'll go back to what the city was doing. I'm not taking the city out of the equation, period, and things like that. I'm not making those changes. Does that answer or?
Yeah.
It's complicated. So I
Why?
question bringing this here, but again, it's transparency.
Why is this so complicated? This doesn't make sense to me why you guys don't talk to each other, especially about something like this. To be fair.
I think I can answer part of that, is that the decision was made in place without contacting Chad, and there was a meeting after Chad requested one.
Right, I understand that. I'm just saying we at the very least we should be able to communicate with each other, I would think. That's all.
I don't disagree, Steve. One other thing that I'll mention, because I think it's important for the committee to know, and I don't know if it's true or not, because I hate rumors, but this one did sting a little bit. I've heard more than once now that the word is out there that the only reason that Chad from the Viroqua Fire Department is making this change is because he's trying to close city dispatch and take away 2 dispatcher jobs. And I want this, and I don't know if it's true, and I don't know where it's coming from. Well, we could talk more about this, but that's completely false. Has absolutely nothing to do with this decision, and it makes me sick to even hear that. And I hope to God it's not true. I hope it's truly a rumor and someone's twisted something that has no idea what they're talking about. But I want my committee to know that, because that is not how I work, and I'm completely disgusted by it. And I couldn't sleep that night when I heard that, and I've heard it more than once. So again, just so you guys know about it, but that's what I'm hearing on the street. That's the reason why we're trying to do this. Far, far, far from the truth. I could care less. That has nothing to do with it. It's about taking care of the community and the people that we serve, and taking care of our firefighters, men and women, and making sure we can do the best job that we can do. And I'm telling you right now that I feel that's the way to do it. And again, making sure you're aware of it. So any more questions? Sorry.
Yeah, if Tri-State's paged out, do you guys still expect to be paged out?
No. There's protocols in place. There's protocols in
Okay.
place. They're very specific protocols, and I don't have them in front of me. There's a level of A through E. A is the worst kind of call, someone not breathing type of thing, to E where they've got a fingernail that fell off or something. You know, I'm being facetious here, but so it's partly that scale. It's also, breathing type issues, bleeding issues, stroke issues, car accidents, unresponsive. There's different things, right? And so I'm getting those numbers. That's something I'll talk about later. But when I do my annual report next month, I'm going to try and break down total numbers that Tri-State operates in our fire district, number of transports from the hospital, and then can show you the number of calls that we are going on. And what I suspect we'll see, again, I want to see the actual numbers so I can give them to you, but what I would suspect you'll see is we're going on about a quarter to a third, probably about a third of actual Tri-State ambulance calls in our fire district. So it's because of those selective reasons. And so, no, we are not expecting, it's actually now we've been trying to find ways to slow it down, because our numbers, and you'll hear me talk about some of the stuff in the annual report, and you've heard me talk about it before, but my job is to make sure we don't burn out our firefighters and make sure that we are available for the serious calls and so on and so forth. So we do look at that on a regular basis, and that's why you'll see the numbers are down a little bit this year versus last year, because we're constantly fine tuning it, trying to work with the city, with the county, and making sure, for the most part, it's pretty good. There's a few times that we go on a call and we're like, why are we going on this call? There's a few times where we're like, why aren't they sending us on this call? The county, for the most part, from what I gather, is that the county follows that list pretty solid. There's sometimes that they'll send it to what you call EMD, which is Emergency Medical Dispatch. That's a Tri-State's entity that dispatches their ambulances. And so sometimes they'll send that call, and then they have the ability to ask for us also. So it's kind of a double layered. Sometimes the county or even the city, sometimes they'll catch it and be like, oh, we're going to send them. Most of the time that's the decision. And sometimes EMD will catch it and be like, hey, send them. This is something that's ramped up or whatever. So is that answering your question? Because we are, and maybe I didn't get your question right, but we are trying to scale back.
Okay.
Because it is getting to be a bit much. 3-4 times in the middle of the night.
I know firsthand information because I am related to the dispatcher that did retire, and there were some issues, and you know what I'm talking about.
Todd,
That's
we
for
can
another
talk, we
story.
can talk on the side. You know me, I'm always willing to talk.
Okay.
So, yep.
Anybody else?
I'd like to just talk a little bit with the PD side. So when this was put on the agenda, Chad advised me that this was going to be on the agenda. First of all, I strongly disagree with this. I mean, our citizens pay taxes for our dispatch, and we have very capable dispatchers that are doing their job. We had a meeting, brought up a couple issues. Those issues for the training scenario wasn't even a city issue. It was a county issue for the 15 minutes. We weren't even notified that you guys were at the training. So to mention that there's issues with it kind of makes me a little, reprehensible, towards our great dispatchers. I spoke with the sheriff actually 3 times in the last 2 weeks, Sergeant Olson. In their words, Sergeant Olson and myself, actually both our dispatchers, when seconds matter, it's actually, in all their words, says this is actually quicker. When somebody is on the phone with them, you're seeing this CAD system. This is why we as a city bought this CAD system. We saw this live. The CAD system, people are getting paged out quicker. People are going to not as much multitasking. For example, just as simple as today, there is an EMS call. There's one dispatcher in the county. There is an EMS call in Reedstown at 9:08. There is a house fire, structure fire in the city of Westby at 9:09. And then there is a city EMS call. So one dispatcher is doing all that. So when we can relieve the pressure and or you have one dispatcher in there that might be doing, and actually there was 2 traffic stops during that time too. So when you have one dispatcher kind of helping out with, the other 30,000 citizens in the county, if we can relieve that pressure, Bruce absolutely loves this. Roy actually loves this. Roy's words though is like, whatever you guys need to do, I'm here for you. Because he didn't say he wasn't taking one stance or the other, whatever you need to, but he says, I have the utmost respect for your officers or your dispatchers. I don't want to, but I'll help out whatever you need to. There is absolutely no issues that I have seen or heard of. So if there's negligence or anything that the dispatchers were doing, then I would agree with it, but they're not. It's actually like Bruce, me, the dispatchers, we're actually saving time, and who benefits from this is the citizens. So like if they're transferring a phone call to Tri-State, they need us to page out first responders and then talk or with fire. That is extremely beneficial to time. And the CAD system, again, is extremely live. I can't say how quick that is, how beneficial it is for the new dispatchers over there. Reaching out to Corinna and Annette even is like, hey, can you help me out with this call? They are doing that. So this CAD system is amazing. But other than it doesn't matter who you talk to. You guys are on one channel, pick up, we're en route. Does it really matter who's actually answering you? If it's a city call, it's the city guys. So I don't think it's clunky. I don't like that word, but maybe it is for you guys, but I don't think it is for us. No matter who you're talking to, if it's Annette, you don't have to know the person by name as long as someone's answering you and they're getting the resources to you. In regards to time lost, again, Todd kind of mentioned it but if you want, seriously, go to either one of our dispatchers and see how it works. It's very fluid. It's very quick. To say that somebody, they're still typing, they might not be able to answer your phone or on the radio as well. So it's very, very live. In regards to the meeting, that first meeting was, you weren't there. It was just weren't invited. It was between 2 dispatchers or the supervisors. So Bruce and
I need you to answer
So Bruce and
why you didn't think it was important to talk to the fire chief about your grandiose idea. That's what I need to know.
my grandiose idea.
Yes, I'm getting upset.
So
This isn't about you or the police department and worried about
trying
your
to take
budget
that.
and stuff like that.
So
My question is when I came, I gave you the respect to come and meet with you, to talk to you and tell you my plans, which you did not do in respect to me when you made the change. What did you do that afternoon rather than calling me and talking to me about it more and talking about you never talk to me about the stuff that you've got all ready to go for tonight to defend yourself. Why did you not have more conversations with me? Why did you go to the sheriff and try and convince him to tell me no? I don't remember my phone ringing, Rick, to have more
because,
conversations about this.
hold on.
No.
So I talked to the sheriff probably a week ago. He said he was going to talk to Bruce Olson and get the information and see what he had to know. I talked to Bruce about it. He had his talk to his dispatchers. I didn't go get the answer for how Roy's stance was until 3:00 this afternoon. So you can call the sheriff on that.
I will, because I'd like to hear it from him. So I don't know what else to say, John, being the chairman and stuff. I don't know what else to say. it just, Steve, there's more to it, I guess, is the problem. But this is about what your fire department feels works best for them. All right. I can see at times where it's been easier on the county because they don't have to deal with as many calls. I mean, there's all these pieces and parts. What I can tell you, it's not the same. City dispatch is not the same as Vernon County dispatch. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not being mean. I'm not gunning for jobs. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. This has to do with 3 months of taking a look at it, not just myself, and working through it. And we feel that it was better. And if you don't like the word less clunky, come up with a better one for me. But I don't feel it's clean. I just don't. And that's what's important to me. And that's what's important to the community, period. Go ahead, Steve.
Does the fire department have the CAD system? Like, do you have it in your truck? Do you have it at the station? So that, okay. Because you guys have it in your cars, yeah? Is it the nature of one being law enforcement, the other being like that? Maybe is that where the disconnect may be, like for that system?
Right. So I think at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, seems like it was maybe the sheriff. Someone had mentioned when they got the CAD system that they should offer that up to the fire and EMS and things like that so we can see information. I don't remember who it was. Was it the sheriff? Do you remember? Yeah. Problem is there's too much information in there that we shouldn't see. And I agree with that. Like, we don't need to know what they need to know, right? And so, unfortunately, we can't see that.
No, I understand. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it and see avenues for, resolution, I guess, because we're same team. Okay.
I agree.
All right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I guess from the dispatch perspective of things, as an example, if there's a traffic accident in town, you may have 3 or 4 people calling 911. That goes to the Vernon County Sheriff's Department. They are busy trying to answer the phones. They're busy trying to type in the information. If it's a medical situation, they may be putting that call through to Tri-State. And from our perspective and talking with Vernon dispatchers, they appreciate us being able to take some of that burden off of them while they're busy answering 911. What's your emergency? We can be paging the first responders or the fire department to assist. So from our perspectives, things work better because we are working together when seconds matter, because those 911 calls are not coming to us. We can page when we can do that and get that help there faster. I'm sure that there's, moments where there's a delay because I was the one that said I was waiting for someone to type. But if the Vernon dispatch would have known that answer, it would have already been typed on there. So, there's 2 sides of it. And I would love to have Chad come and see, and sit at dispatch with us to see how we get that information and how quickly that works. Communication there too would be great.
I agree with you, Annette. It's just too bad that we don't ever get that kind of communication or offers or anything like that until
because we didn't know you were at the school that day for the one call. And that's in the city.
Let's not, that kind of adds to another.
Okay.
We don't want to go there.
Yes. So the communication goes always. And, none of the other townships get to pick who dispatches for them. They have their dispatchers.
So with that being said, years ago, city dispatch was police and fire dispatch, and they handled the whole picture. Now that's not the case. So we're only looked at as the city fire department at city dispatch, And then the county takes care of the town. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to page Viroqua Fire to alleviate or whatever, why aren't you paging Viroqua Fire for all costs? These are conversations that we could have had pre making the decision on their own. Like, we could have sat down and worked through some of this stuff and come up with a plan that maybe made more sense or whatever. And, after me having this conversation with Rick that day, it would have been, I kind of expected maybe a phone call and been like, hey, can we talk about this some more? Or I've got some ideas, or nothing.
But they're,
Other than I heard out in the public that things were happening, but yet nothing directly to the person that it can make these decisions, right?
there
Mr.
again,
Mayor,
the
you
dispatch,
say?
the dispatch
I
kind
want
of
this
has,
to be
the dispatch
done.
kind of has its own entity as far as this is the dispatch job. It's part of the Viroqua Police Department or part of the Vernon County Sheriff's Department. So we don't necessarily have a say in how you run the fire department. And so the dispatch centers worked together to handle the dispatch decisions. And I guess that's,
But where in there does it make sense that you wouldn't want the entity that it affects the most not to have any say in it? That just blows my mind. Like, that's your answer right there of why I'm frustrated. And again, that is not why we're changing. I'm not sitting here thinking, okay, I gave him 3 months. I'm mad because that happened. We're going to make this change. That's not what this is about. But it is bringing it back, and it's starting to make me upset because it reminds me of where we got here in the first place. Why am I dealing with this? Why am I bothering you guys about this? Like, we could have hours and hours and hours long meeting, and that's not what this is about tonight. This is about to educate you guys on dispatching, and then I'm making this change because I knew that there'd be friction, and I knew that there'd be kickback, and really no listening, and not from you guys, right? But no listening. Mayor, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to add, I was involved in one meeting with the two chiefs, the sheriff, and Sergeant Olson out at the sheriff's department. And at that meeting, which was at approximately 3 months ago-ish, that's the meeting you're referring to, right? So, and I have to follow up with the sheriff, and I'll call him tonight after the meeting. But how I left that meeting, my understanding was the initial 911 call was going to be paged by the dispatcher that took the call. And you're agreeing with me, Rick? And that hasn't happened since the meeting more than a couple of times. Now, I bring that up because the reason why the sheriff and Rick at the time and Sergeant Olson, myself, and the chief agreed that was the right procedure is when you're the individual taking the call of the emergency, you get a better sense of the emergency than reading it on a screen. So we all agreed at that particular meeting that was a good policy. And I don't know if Sergeant Olson and the sheriff had a conversation after that to change it differently, or how it ended up not really being changed. Other than I do know that the sheriff has supported his interest in, if we, the city has a need from a dispatch perspective, that he's willing to fill that need. So to hear, Rick had said you talked to him at 3 o'clock today and he has a different position on that. I will certainly follow up, but the last meeting I had and the correspondence I had with the sheriff was that he believed at the time that the person taking the 911 call should be the one dispatching it. Second pages could then fall through to the city dispatch, which has historically been the case, right? And at that point, it's a city call. Then, we're en route. We got the information. The page got out quickly, rapidly. Everything's firing the way it should. Then we can go back and work it that way. So, that's how it was going to work the last meeting that I was involved in with everybody. So, and I've heard, to the chief's point, I've heard on this, some rumors that he's, going after people's jobs regarding dispatch. And it's frustrating to me because that isn't the case. It's not the case at all. I've met with Annette numerous times and shared with her my opinion of the quality she does. I think Corinne is a tremendous dispatcher. It's not that the Viroqua dispatch can't handle it. It's that the sheriff at the time, the sheriff had agreed that the individual taking the 911 call should be the one that makes that dispatch. And that's what the chief is going back to. And I agree and support that wholeheartedly. So that's my position on this. And I think as a department head, the chief has the right to manage his department. And I think the fact that this decision happened without his knowledge is frustrating. The chief and I and the chiefs talked about that in that particular meeting and, shared the frustrations. And I believe that situation is over because it's been talked about. And I don't think that'll be happening again. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've kicked that dog around enough. Let's move on to the update on the fire department building project.
All right. So they haven't got much work done the last couple days for obvious reasons, right? It's been cold, although they were there today working. Things are moving along. They're approximately 6 weeks behind. Due to that heavy rain we got, about 5 inches or whatever, and just some other pieces and parts or whatever. They believe that they'll have some catch up time throughout the rest of the winter and into spring, as long as the weather is decent to them. So they're hoping to still be done somewhere in the July area. The front part, which I call the admin part, that's all been, the walls are up, the roof's on, and you saw plywood up probably, and they've got some plastic and things like that. So that part is being heated now to draw the frost out of the ground. And I believe start of next week, they're hoping to start digging in plumbing and electrical into the ground. On the admin part, they do now have 2 crews there, so they're going to start working on what we call the bays, the apparatus bays. By the end of February, that's allotted to be enclosed also and start heating the apparatus bays. Aside from that, it seems to be going well. Seems to be coming right along. Haven't really had any new hiccups. I do plan on bringing to council the last meeting in February, kind of an update on where we're at. And I went through those change orders and list of those and stuff. So kind of giving an update on that and how that overall pricing is going, or the budget's going. Aside from that, I guess I really don't have any more on that, unless you have any questions for me or something specific.
Okay.
Hold on, just quick.
Yep.
Those 6 weeks, are those built into the contingency at all, or is that?
So, yeah, good question. So originally they had about a month of downtime from the time they were, I think it was putting up the steel or when the steel was going to arrive. So they had kind of a window of let's call it dead space or whatever. I think it was in like November. Project got started a little late. We had that black dirt issue, so it took longer to get the site prepped. We had that rain come through, the 5 inches or whatever in 24 hours, give or take. That kind of messed up some things. So that month got eaten up, and that's gone. So our slush was gone. And now we're 6 weeks kind of. So if you look at it, I guess it's more like 2 to 2.5 months. Although the November thing was kind of that flex area or whatever, they believe they'll catch up and things will start running smoother because the steel is up and the ground is frozen, which helps but hinders a little bit, if that makes sense. But they're not dealing with mud, and give it time, right? Give it time. So we're hoping that the weather, no snow has actually been helping. So we've been lucky too. Like we had a really dry start and then that rain, and now no snow, that's helping with not having to remove snow and fighting with the snow. And, so it's been an interesting experience. And Rick and Nate and whoever, building projects or whatever, it's not, Sarah's, been involved. It's not as fun as you'd think, but we're getting through it. There are fun parts too. Don't get me wrong.
I get the keys.
Yeah. Once you get the keys. Yeah. So anyways.
I gave you 54 slides, so I don't have any other updates than what you saw earlier, so.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Just a couple quick things. You heard me say next month we plan on bringing our annual report to you. So I'm not going to talk a lot about numbers tonight because you'll get it then. But we had about a 5.5% increase in call volume from 23 to 24. That's how it turned out. In 2023, 68% of our calls were medical and 32% were fire. 2024, that number kind of leveled out a little bit. So it ended up being 61% medical and 39% fire. So we ended up having a little more fire calls between the 2 years. Overall, since we started medical, our call volume increased by 126%. So it sounds worse than what it probably is, but it's a lot. I always bring these up, and I think it's important. 59 times in 2024, we had no ambulance available. So we ended up waiting either for another ambulance from La Crosse, but typically it was Viola Lafarge that would come in and pick it up. In 2023, that number was 50, so it went up a little bit. But the number overall is better than what it was. It was over 100 times, if you remember me talking about. It was way unacceptable there for a while, but it's better. Number of times that we've been on multiple calls was 49 this year, and 2023 was 33. So that number seems to consistently go up where we're trying to cover more than one call at a time. And let's see, so far trending in 2025, it's down. I'm not going to say much more because that usually gets me in trouble, but we're starting a little under what the average has been. Other than that, let's see, we've got an awards banquet coming up for the firefighters and EMRs on Saturday to recognize individuals for different things that they achieved over the year. That is always a good time and good to recognize the individuals for their achievements. We do have an entry-level firefighter class, which is a requirement by the state before you can start participating with the department. That we've got another class in March starting up. Western Tech puts those on. So that'll be coming. We've got 5 people that'll be taking that class, which is kind of nice. It's been a while since we've had people. 4 of them are juniors. One of them's over 18. That's a good sign. We're starting to see some action. We actually are going over to Youth Initiative on Thursday to talk to them about public relations and about the fire department, kind of a question and answer, and try and get some more recruits for our junior program. And then we're also going to try to get back to the Viroqua area schools this year and try that again too. Where they say that finding them at a young age and getting them involved is helpful. Other than that, unless you have any questions for me, that's all I've got for tonight. I think I've talked enough.
Second period for public comment. Anybody online, Sarah?
Yeah, there are. So if anybody would like to say anything, just unmute yourself and make a comment.
This is the sheriff. I have tuned into the entire meeting, and I am here to support the community, and I want to thank all of you for your service. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is 608-778-3051.
Thanks, Rick.
Anyone else?
Okay. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
This is Crystal, and I would move to adjourn.
Steve, I'll second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Okay.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody.